There comes a moment in your life when you realize it was never your flaws that made people walk away. It was your strength, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't announce itself but shifts everything it touches, the kind that makes people uncomfortable, not because you harm them, but because you refuse to be anything less than who you are. Spiritual strength isn't loud. It doesn't demand the spotlight. It doesn't perform, but it is undeniable. It carries truth. And in a world built on performance, that truth often leads to isolation. You've probably noticed this pattern. The more you grow within, the more people begin to fade. The more honest you become, the more you're labeled as too much. The deeper your silence grows, the more people mistake it for distance. And yet you've never been more present, more grounded, more real. Carl Jung once wrote, Carl Jung, loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. That's the ache of the spiritually strong. You feel connected to something greater, and yet disconnected from the world that can't understand what you carry. This isn't a video about fixing yourself. It's not advice. It's a mirror, a reminder. A message to those who need to remember, your rejection wasn't proof of your weakness. It was proof of your presence. Your presence carries weight. Your energy shifts dynamics. You awaken what others work hard to suppress. And that's why it is often misunderstood and feared. If something inside you already resonates with these words, stay here. What comes next might explain the quiet pain you've carried for years and show you why your strength, so often mistaken for a flaw, is your sacred gift. Your light activates their shadow. You don't try to make people uncomfortable. You don't seek conflict. Yet your presence has a way of stirring things in others. Things they've buried, things they'd rather ignore. It's not your fault. It's your frequency. When you carry spiritual strength, you carry light. And light doesn't just illuminate beauty, it exposes what hides in the dark. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the hidden part of the psyche, filled with everything people suppress. Most people run from their shadow, but when they stand near someone who has faced theirs, like you, something happens. They feel stirred. Their discomfort rises, and they don't always know why. You've likely noticed it. People shift around you. They get defensive. They criticize you. Or they simply pull away. It's not because you're too much. It's because your clarity threatens the illusions they depend on. When you live in truth, you become a mirror. You didn't ask to be, but your light made it impossible not to be. And those who haven't yet met their own darkness will often reject yours, not because you are wrong, but because they aren't ready to see what you awaken. 2. You don't fit their roles. From the time you were young, you sensed it, the quiet expectations, smile more. Speak softer, don't question, fit in. But something inside you resisted. Not out of rebellion, but out of truth. The spiritually strong cannot wear masks for long. Pretending suffocates their soul. Carl Jung described the persona as the mask we wear to meet the world. It's necessary at first, but for the awakened, that mask starts to feel like a prison. As you begin to live from your core, not your costume, people panic. They weren't attached to your soul, they were attached to the role you played. And when you stop performing, you stop fitting. They call it rejection, but really it's a breaking of the illusion. You don't do well in shallow spaces. You crave meaning, depth. And when the conversations stay surface level, you begin to shrink until you can't anymore. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. You didn't fail to fit the mold. You outgrew it. And that's not failure. That's evolution. 3. You see what others deny. Your vision isn't just with your eyes, it's intuitive. You feel tension before it's spoken. You sense dishonesty before it's revealed. You pick up on sadness behind a smile, fear behind confidence, disconnection beneath laughter. Carl Jung described intuition as the function that perceives what lies beneath the surface. But this gift isn't always welcomed. People say they want to be seen, until you see too much, until you say something that uncovers what they've buried. That's when discomfort arrives. That's when your truth gets called overthinking or too sensitive. But you weren't wrong. You were simply real. You don't have the luxury of pretending not to notice. Once your soul registers something, you can't unsee it. You can't unfeel it. And that knowing can be isolating. You are not too much. You just see clearly. And in a world addicted to illusion, that clarity is rare. 4. You love from the soul. When you love, it's not performative. It's not polite. It's powerful. You feel people. You see them. You connect deeply, even in silence. But not everyone can receive that. Many only know how to love from the surface, from performance. And when your love asks for presence, for truth, For soul-level honesty, they retreat. They might admire your depth, be drawn to your light. But when they realize that loving you requires vulnerability, presence, truth, that's when the fear kicks in. Carl Jung said the deepest connection is the one we have with our own soul. But if someone hasn't met themselves, they can't meet you where you are. So they leave. Not because you loved too deeply, but because they weren't ready to love at that depth. Your love is sacred. It's real. It's rare, and it will only ever be understood by those who have dared to feel the same. But you don't seek approval. Most of the world chases validation, applause, popularity. But spiritual strength makes you walk away from that game. You stop asking for permission to be who you are, and that unnerves people. You say no without guilt. You speak truth without sugar. You walk away from what no longer resonates, not in anger, but in peace. Carl Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, free from roles, masks, and cultural conditioning. But people still living in those roles, they don't understand it. They think you're cold, arrogant, distant, but you're not cold. You're sovereign. You're not rude. You're rooted. You don't need applause to exist. And that kind of self-possession is intimidating to those still seeking approval to feel whole. 6. Your energy heals, and that scares people. There's something in your presence, a calm, a depth, a gentleness. Without trying, you create a space where people feel safe, seen, even healed. But healing is disruptive. It awakens what others have buried, and while they may be drawn to your energy, they may also run from what it brings up. Carl Jung spoke of the wounded healer, the one whose own suffering unlocks the power to heal others. But healing isn't always welcomed. Many want comfort without transformation. They want your calm, but not the mirror, your love, but not the truth it exposes. Some people feel uneasy around you without knowing why. Some feel overwhelmed. It's not your fault. It's your energy doing its work, stirring the unconscious. And not everyone is ready to face it. 7. You chose truth, and truth has a price. There came a moment, maybe quiet, maybe unspoken, where you stopped pretending. You stopped agreeing just to keep the peace. You stopped smiling when you didn't feel it. And that choice changed everything. Truth doesn't always win popularity. It disrupts. It reveals. And when you choose to live in it, rejection often follows. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But you faced yours. And because of that, others will turn away. Not because you hurt them, but because your presence reminded them of what they've denied in themselves. Your authenticity became inconvenient, your clarity too loud, your depth too real. But truth, even when it cost you comfort and connection, leaves you whole. You didn't lose people. You released the illusions that were holding them. You weren't rejected because you were weak. You were rejected because you carried something they couldn't control. Truth, presence, energy. In a world that rewards masks, you chose to be real. And yes, that often means walking alone. But it also means living aligned, and that's where freedom begins. Otro. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that privilege doesn't come without solitude, without silence, without seasons of loneliness. You've been through those seasons. You've watched people leave. You've doubted your path. But you stayed true, and that matters. There is power in the soul who refuses to dim just to be accepted by a shadowed world. You weren't being rejected. You were being recalibrated, realigned, prepared to walk a path made not for the many, but for the real. And along that path, you will meet others like you, souls who feel deeply, see clearly, love purely. Souls who don't just survive in silence, they speak through it. Let the world misunderstand you. Let the noise fade. Because the deeper you go into your soul, the closer you come to the only kind of belonging that truly matters, the one that lives within. And if these words echoed something you've always felt but never fully said, leave this below as a sign. My strength speaks through silence. Let it find the ones who need it most.